صل على محمد وآل محمد. Let's give it a couple of moments. Let everybody come gather together. Pause it. Hajj Hassan, let's pause it. Let's stop it until. Inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Sallallahu alayka ya Sayyidi ya Rasool Allah. Sallallahu alayka wa ala ahli baytika at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Sallallahu alayka ya Mawlaya wa ibn Mawlaya. يا غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء فاز من اعتصم بحبلكم أمن من لجأ إليكم يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. قال الله في محكم كتابه الكريم بعد أن أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن فرعون علا في الأرض وجعل أهلها أشياعا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. بلغ رسوله الكريم وإنا على ذلك لشاهدين. عطروا مجلسكم بذكر محمد وآل محمد. Continuing with the verse from yesterday. The verse yesterday said, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلُهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. And we wish to bestow favor upon those who have been deemed weak upon earth, and we wish to make them leaders, and we wish to make them the inheritors. This verse is in response to the verse prior. The verse prior, verse number 4 in Surah Al-Qasas, Allah says, إِنَّ فِرْعَوْنَ عَلَى فِي الْأَرْضِ. Indeed, Pharaoh has considered himself exalted, has exonerated himself, has considered himself above everyone. وَجَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا أَشْيَاعًا أو وَجَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا شِيَعًا يَسْتَضْعِفُ طَائِفَةً مِّنْهُمْ. And he made the people of this earth, he divided them into groups, into tribes, let's say, into what we would say divided them into sections. يستضعف طائفة. He deems one group of them as weak. Then what? يذبح أبناءهم ويستحيي نساءهم. He kills their sons and spares their daughters. إنه كان من المفسدين. Indeed, he was a mischievous, corrupt individual. The sisters in the very back, let's quiet the kids down or remove them to another place. Barakallah bikum. Can they hear me in the back? Behind the curtains? Yani this is a daily occurrence, huh? What do we take from this verse? The Quran gives us an example of what people are like. Remember, our main theme is what? إِنَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ يَهْدِي لِلَّتِي هِيَ أَقْوَمُ. Indeed, this book that is intended to be recited guides man to that which is the most what? The straightest of paths. يَهْدِي لِلَّتِي هِيَ أَقْوَمُ. Allah here gives us an example, gives us a story of Pharaoh. Pharaoh is a title for a king. Of whom? Of the Egyptians. Allah says that Pharaoh has exalted himself, meaning that he has deemed himself powerful. By doing so, first of all, what does Pharaoh do? What did Pharaoh do? Pharaoh claimed not only is he exalted, not only did he consider himself the son of a god, rather Pharaoh went above that. Pharaoh said, "Ana rabbukum al-a'la." So his corruption and his self-importance elevated within him until he considered himself what? A god, a creator. And subhanAllah, we see that people with power, when they are left unchecked, that's what happens. See, when we read the Constitution of the United States of America, we find that one of the main points in that Constitution is the right to bear arms. Maulana, why did they place that within the Constitution? To ensure that no tyrant could rise over them. Because the founding fathers saw that tyranny is always a result of those who have been made weak. Those who are weak. Khawati, sisters in the back. Sisters in the back. This isn't a place for chatter and for gossip and for chit chat. حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Those who find no benefit in my lectures, let me know, I will step down. Those who find no need for my lectures, let me know. Those who find no respect for what I'm saying, let me know. Other than that, I expect everybody to pay attention and listen. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. The founding fathers, they saw that tyranny is a result of what? Is a result of people who deemed themselves kings, who deemed themselves powerful, who deemed themselves better than you. So when they established a state, one of the main things that they put is what? Is the right to bear arms. In case what? In case a revolt or a revolution or an uprising needed to happen, you had the right to bear arms in order to stand up to tyranny. SubhanAllah, so I don't want to go too deep into it, but it's strange how history teaches us how not to be tyrannical, but the second that the oppressed attain power, they become the tyrannical themselves, huh? And that's normal in human nature. Whether it's with Bani Israel, whether it's with the modern state, whether it's with the Iraqis, wherever you go. The second the oppressed rise, they themselves become the tyrannical ones. No? Nonetheless, the Quran says, إِنَّ فِرْعَوْنَ عَلَى فِي الْأَرْضِ وَجَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا شِيَعًا. Not only did he see himself exalted in this land, rather he divided its people. He divided its people into groups, into sects, into certain, you're this group and these are this group. Then what? وَجَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا شِيَعًا يَسْتَضْعِفُ طَائِفَةً مِّنْهُمْ. After dividing them into sections, he deems which group is worthy and which group isn't. Which group is powerful and which group isn't. Maulana, it is the normal way of those in power is to want to control those who do not have power. The haves always want to control the have-nots. As a result of that, what we end up seeing is what? is we divide and conquer, right? And we divide based upon multiple things, based upon color, based upon ethnicity, based upon race, based upon religion. And usually the best way to control an individual is through their emotion. And the best emotional tool to use to control individuals is that of faith. We can go beyond the concept of ethnicity. We can go beyond the concept of color. We can go beyond the concept of race. But when you touch the emotional heart of an individual by saying us and them, and saying that we are the light and they are the darkness, we walk the path of God and they walk the path of the devil, what ends up happening? You end up giving these individuals the right to kill indiscriminately. When you say we are God's chosen people and everyone else is a Gentile, meaning what? Then nobody can live up to you. Therefore, they're not worthy of you. Hence, you start calling them what? Amalekite. You start calling them what? Gentiles, terrorists, backwards, as if they are not a human. That is that concept of supremacy that exists with some tribes is the reason for most wars within this world. Most wars are fought over what? Over power. When you bring a group of people and you say to them, you are the chosen ones, you are the only ones that get to go to heaven, you are the ones that have been chosen, declared by God to do what you want to everyone else, and everyone else is a Gentile. What do you think that does to an individual's psyche? Hence we see children are buried under rebels and they are being called terrorists. They are killing children, and the children that are being killed are the terrorists. So Fir'aun took this way, the way of what? Of dividing the people and conquering them. Then he began to what? يُذَبِّحُ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ وَيَسْتَحْيِي نِسَاءَهُم, killing their boys and sparing the girls. Here, this is in reference when the Mufassirin, when they come to this verse and they say, what is this in reference to? This is in reference, they narrate that one day Pharaoh saw a dream. Now this is one of the stories for this narration. And in that dream, he saw a flame rise out of Jerusalem and burn all of Egypt, but did not touch the homes of the Israelites. When he woke up, he called upon his soothsayers and his fortune tellers. And he said to them, what does this mean? They said to him, this means that the end of the civilization is at the hands of the Israelites, because the Israelites come from Jerusalem. They say he turned to them and he says, kill every child, every male child born, and spare all the women. Because women at that time were deemed weak. Women could not fight. Women did not have the know-how, the capability, or the way to fight. So they carried on killing the boys and sparing the girls. Why did they spare the girls? For obvious reasons. For slavery, to be a concubine, for what have you. Another opinion is that Moses was foretold by the prophets. Moses was foretold by the prophets. Because he was foretold by the prophets, he ended up what? The soothsayers and what have you ended up putting a hit, as it were, upon the lad that was born. That is why we find through both narrations, through all three narrations, Judeo-Christian and Islamic narrations of what Pharaoh did. Now some opinions, when it says to يستحيي نساءهم means what? يستحيي نساءهم means istihya in the Arabic language is to remove shame from something. When we say this individual has haya, means he has shame. Yastahi means to remove shame. And that is a metaphor for promiscuity. But the Arabs also used to use the term istihya for a prisoner if he is allowed to live. Nonetheless, يستحي يذبح أبناءهم ويستحيي نساءهم إنه كان من المفسدين. Indeed, Pharaoh was one of those individuals who was mischievous, who was corrupt, who caused corruption on earth. We see that the methodology that was used by Pharaoh was used all through time. Every empire that rose and every empire that came and every empire that went until today. By the way, let's not get it twisted. Superpowers today are empires, right? What differentiates a superpower from an empire? The expansion. Maulana, the world superpowers today expand, they just don't call it by name. What do you think a military base all the way across the world is? Huh? What do you think it is when a superpower wants to protect its interest 10,000 miles away from home? Is that not expansion? What interests do you have across the globe? If you have interests, your interests are here, where you live, where you stay. Right? That's like me living in Utah, saying I have to protect my interest in Utah by making sure that the people in New York do exactly what I want. Nonetheless, Maulana. So let's not get it twisted. Superpowers today are empires. And they struggle the same as empires, except they do it with a smile, or back then they did it with the whip. Then the Quran says, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. And we wish to bestow favor upon those who have been deemed weak upon this earth. وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلَهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. This here, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. حج أبو مروة مولانا رحمة للحسين، يعني صوتهم أعلى من صوتي وأنا عندي سماعة، شو القصة؟ I would like everyone who has a child to get up and grab their child, please. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. That's all right. Turn, Abu Marwa, turn the lights off in there, please, and have everybody come sit next to their parent. Turn the lights off and have everybody sit next to their parent. Nonetheless, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So the second verse says, and we wish to bestow favor upon those who have been deemed weak on earth. We said yesterday, وَنُرِيدُ means the will of Allah. The will of Allah is what? وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ, to bestow favor. Men in the Arabic language comes in two forms. Comes in a positive form and in a negative form. The positive form is that Allah wishes to bestow favor upon man. That favor is bestowed from the Creator, and anything that comes from the Creator is what? Is a blessing in its essence. Therefore, when we say a father wants to bestow favor upon their child, that's not negative. Why is that not negative? Because the father is the source of the blessing upon their child, right? What did we say yesterday? Yesterday we mentioned that Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, he says one of the obligations of a son towards their father, in the Arabic language when we say son, walad, it means both men and women, right? And we said that in the Arabic language when you speak of both sexes, of both genders within the Arabic language, you have to use the masculine term. So One of the obligations of a son towards their father, and a daughter towards her father, father being father and mother, let's say of a child towards their parent, is to know that the parent is the source of every goodness within the life of this individual. So when a father wishes to bestow favor upon their children, it is considered what? It is considered a blessing. However, when two individuals, when people within each other wish to bestow favor upon each other, that is considered negative. Al-minna, between the people or from he who is at the level or below, is considered negative. Why? Maulana, you as a son cannot bestow favor upon your father because your father is the source of blessing. When I want to bestow favor upon my brother, I have no favor to bestow upon him. Everything I have is lent to me by Allah. Whether it be wealth, whether it be health, whether it be power, whether it be whatever it is. Whatever I have does not really belong to me. Everything that I have, we can essentially say is on loan. Why? I say if you buy a house in North America, how long do you have the house for? Because the house is really the property of the government, right? How long do you have? How long is your contract? 200 years? Huh? No, not how long you have to pay for the house. The land, how long do you have the contract of the land? There is no forever. It's capitalism. We don't have forever in capitalism. For example, in Canada is what? The land belongs to the Queen, right? So even when you buy a land, that land is essentially on loan to you for a contracted period of time, whether it be 200, 300 years, how much ever it is. Essentially. Meaning what? Meaning that the land doesn't really belong to you. Also, you only own a specific amount of the land, like a meter, 2 meters down, right? You don't own the whole land. So if they find oil down 60 meters, that's not your land. That's the crown. So the same thing here. When you're renting a house, does the house belong to you? You're paying for it. It belongs to the who? To who signs the contract. Everything you have doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the Creator. So when I want to give you, yes, I'm giving you from what I earned. But in essence, is it my wealth? What does the Quran say? وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. And do they give from their own wealth, or do they give from what we have blessed them with? So if I want to bestow favor, how can I bestow favor upon somebody if I myself have no power? And here we come to another understanding. Maulana, what does the term minna mean? Men in the Arabic language means the heavyweight. Something that is heavy, a weight that is heavy. So when you say minna, means that you have bestowed a heavy weight upon this individual in blessing. The narration says they used to come to the Prophet salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi li dhikrihi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. They used to say, Ya Muhammad, isn't it enough that we became believers, that we became Muslims? What else do you want? What does the Quran say to them? قُلْ لَا تَمُنُّوا عَلَيَّ إِسْلَامُكُمْ. Don't think that you're doing me or Allah a favor by becoming Muslims. Rather, Allah has bestowed favor upon you, that He has guided you to Islam. So minna between people is negative. That's why we find in the Arabic language, especially in the Iraq language, what do we say when we want to show humility and humbleness? What do we say? Mamnoon. What does mamnoon means? It means I am indebted to you for the favor bestowed upon me. In turn, what does the other person say? The other person either says khadim, means I am your servant, I haven't bestowed a favor, or ma alayk minna, meaning what? I have no favor to bestow upon you. All of that is extracted from what? From this understanding. The understanding is that we have no favor to bestow over each other. But Allah bestows favor upon His being, upon His creation, sorry. So Allah says, and we wish to bestow favor. وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. To bestow favor upon those who have been deemed weak. Istud'ifu does not mean dhi'af, does not mean that they are weak. Istud'if means what? In the translations, when we go and look, it means, it means those who were imprisoned, who were hurt, who were harmed, who were killed, those whose power was stripped from them, not that they did not have power. That they are not da'if, they are not weak. They have been what? Deemed to be so. Power has been taken from them. When power is taken from you, you're faced with one of two things. Either you stand and you fight, or you say, let me be patient and collect my power. Maulana, we seem to think that the best way forward is to fight. That's not always the case. Amir al-Mu'mineen, how many days, how many years was he in the background after the death of the Prophet? كم سنة جلس أمير المؤمنين في الدار? Huh? 20. Who says more? 23. 23 Hajj Abu Marwa? About. How many years did he, by the way, those 23 years, 20, 23, 25, that number of years, what was he doing? لكني أسففت مع القوم إذ أسفوا وطرت معهم الطار. The Imam, he says, أما والله لقد تقمصها فلان. By Allah, Fulan wore dress that does not belong to him. He took it from me. While he knows that my position from Khilafah is the position of a grinding stone and the wheel on top of that grinding stone. If you remove the wheel, it's just a stone, it's useless. ينحدر عن السيل ولا يرقى إلي الطير. He says, I am the summit. A bird cannot fly to my heights, and from me the water springs. A metaphor to the fact that he is the summit. فَسَدَلْتُ دُونَهَا ثَوْبًا وَطَوَيْتُ عَنْهَا كَشْحًا. He says, I turned my back to it and I pulled my thawb, my garment, away from it. وَطَفِقْتُ أَرْتَئِي بَيْنَ أَنْ أَصُولَ بِيَدٍ جَذَّاءَ وَأَصْبِرَ عَلَى طِخْيَةٍ عَمْيَاءٍ. And I was left wandering like a person who's asking without a hand to put forth. Or he who is patient about getting hit while he's blind. Or a طِخْيَةٍ عَمْيَاء, being struck while of a strike that will blind him. يَهْرَمُ فِيهَا الْكَبِيرُ وَيَشِيبُ فِيهَا الصَّغِيرُ. This trial, the youth will turn their head white, and the old will die out of sorrow. فَوَا عَجَبًا بَيْنَمَا هُوَ يَسْتَقِيلُهَا فِي حَيَاتِهِ إِذْ جَعَلَهَا لِفُلَانَ بَعْدَ وَفَاتِهِ. What an astonishment. While he's saying, أَقِيلُونِي, allow me to resign, I don't want this. Within his life, he secretly pushed it towards someone else in his time. ساعد الله قلبك يا أمير المؤمنين. So Allah says, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Amir al-Mu'mineen was not weak. Amir al-Mu'mineen, when they entered the house, Maulana, they narrate that Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen was in the back room with his friends, with his companions. And when they kicked in the house, Fatima came up to the door. When they kicked in the door. Our narrations, and I don't care what their narrations say. Our narrations from the Ahlul Bayt, they say, جَاءَ إِلَيْهِ أَمِيرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, threw him onto the ground and kicked him in the face. Then he grabbed him and he says, وَيْحَكَ يَا هَذَا. Were it not for an oath that I swore to the Prophet, you would know who would enter my house. فَنَادَى الرَّجُلْ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالرَّجُلْ فَإِنَّهُ مُوسَى. He called out, come get him. He won't do anything because he has sworn an oath. That's why they say when he was guided, when they dragged him out, what would he say? What was he saying? إِنَّ قَوْمِ اسْتَضْعَفُونِ ثُمَّ كَادُوا يَقْتُلُونَ. He says, Ya Habibi, Ya Rasulullah, my people have deemed me weak. This is the word of whom? Of Aaron, the brother of Moses. He didn't say that I am weak. He says, La, inna qawm istad'afun. أبتا هذا السامري وعجله ومال الناس عن هارون. Nonetheless, then it says, وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلُهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. And to make them imams, leaders. Maulana, they are imams either way. But to what? To make them imams and to make them leaders. Imams here meaning what? To make them leaders as in the leaders of the communities, as in to give them power. And to make them heirs. To allow them to inherit the earth. And in another verse, what does Allah say? وَلَقَدْ كَتَبْنَا في الزبور من بعد الذكر أن الأرض يرثها عبادي أحسنتم. And we have written in the Psalms after the remembrance of Allah that the earth shall be inherited by the meek, Maulana. In fact, if we go to the Bible today, we see that quote remaining. That the earth, that the meek shall inherit the earth. And what is the purpose? The first thing that we must ask ourselves are why did the tyrants always deem specific groups as weak? Maulana, whether you like to believe it or not, whether you think it's a conspiracy or not, besides the point. You will see that there's always a battle between righteous and wrong. Between oppression and freedom. Yani hasa, our youth who haven't read history, they cannot relate to something that we were talking about the other day. It's been 1400 years. And the Shi'i has been persecuted simply for being a Shi'i. They might be free in one land and persecuted next door. When they mock and they say you are a religion of taqiyya, you as a Shi'i should ask yourself is why did we have to use taqiyya? Maulana, when I was a young lad, we had a picture of the Imam hanging in the house. When certain individuals would enter the house, that picture would have to be removed. Imagine that you couldn't listen to anything that would mourn the Ahlul Bayt. Why? Not because you wanted to overthrow power. Not because you wanted to take power, to overthrow the government. But subhanallah, ya Ali, لا يبغضك إلا ابن زنا. Oh Ali, only the bastard, the one who doesn't know his son, is the one that hates you. Hey, هاي ذكرني بأبيات الجواهري أنت العراقي أم أنا سل مرجعيك. الحاصل مولانا سبحان الله. We went through a time when in order for you to listen to al-Atmiyya, today everybody knows, mashallah, Basim al-Karbala'i, all of these renowned maddahis as they call them. There was a time where you would have to hide listening to them. In Najaf, in the Hawza of Najaf, they say that during that time you could not publicly sell books that are not approved by the government. So what would they do? They would photocopy and hide them, a couple of papers at a time, all around the bookshop. When a shaykh comes, or a sayyid comes, and he would want a book, they would say, I want the book, for example, so and so. He says we would have to go and collect the papers and hide them to the shaykh. Give it to them in hiding. And the shaykh would take it in hiding and read it in hiding, Mawlana. In Najaf, in the capital of Tashayya. Why? The Quran answers this. It says, وَنُمَكِّنْ لَهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنُرِي فِرْعَوْنَ وَهَامَانَ وَجُنُودَهُمَا مِنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يَحْذَرُونَ. It says, and to grant them power on earth. Whom? Al-Mustad'afun. And to grant them power on earth, and to show Pharaoh and Haman and their soldiers, their hosts, those who assist them and support them, what they feared from them, Mawlana. Why would you try to take power from someone if you do not fear them? Why would you try to suppress and put them down if you do not fear them? If your claim to what is the truth, why would you fear? But when you find that, yes, you have to kill children so that they don't grow up to become a part of this movement. Mawlana, they're children. If you stop killing their parents, they won't become what you fear. If Pharaoh didn't kill the Jews, they wouldn't have. They weren't the Jews at that point. They were the Israelites. If Pharaoh didn't kill the Israelites, they wouldn't have overtaken. They wouldn't have rose. Mawlana, don't poke the bear and it won't come out of hibernation and bite your face off. Stop putting yourself in positions where you do not need to be in. And you won't have to fear the repercussion. That's why, Mawlana, when we come to the concept of our Imams, all of our Imams, for the Imam, he says, مَا مِنَّا إِلَّا مَقْتُولٌ أَوْ مَسْمُومٌ. When we talk about this verse, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, لَتَعْطُفُنَّ الدُّنْيَا عَلَيْنَا بِشِمَاسِهَا أو عفوا بعد شماسها عطف البروس. He says this world will turn around and try to bite us the way that an unwieldy camel bites the calf that is suckling its teeth. وَتَلَا, and then he recited وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Then the Imam says, when he was asked about this, قَالَ هُمْ وَآلُ مُحَمَّدٍ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَآلِهِ. He says, يَبْعَثُ اللَّهُ مَهْدِيَّهُمْ بَعْدَ جُهْدِهِمْ فَيُعِزَّهُمْ. Allah will send their Mahdi after their suppression and their oppression and will elevate them. When we come to this concept, we find that the Imam salawatullah, rather the Prophet, لذكره صلوا عليه وآله. He says, Al-Mahdi min waldi, ismuhu ismi, wa kunyatuhu kunyati. The Mahdi is from my sons. His name is my name, and his kunya, meaning, you know how with Arabs say Abu Fulan, is my kunya, meaning his name is Muhammad Abul Qasim, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. He says, تكون له غيبة وحيرة حتى يضل الحق حتى يضل الخلق عن أديانهم. He says he will have a long oscillation which will cause people to wander, not to wonder, to wander, to be lost, to a point where most people will lose their faith, their religion. فعند ذلك يقبل كالشهاب الثاقب. At that point he will come like a shooting star. فيملأها عدلا وقسطا كما ملئت ظلما وجورا. اللهم عجل فرجه. When the Imam was asked, يا ابن رسول الله, what is the meaning behind فلا أقسم بالخنس الجوار الكنس? We know the linguistic meaning of al-khunnas, al-jawar, al-kunnas are the stars and the planets. The stars who disappear during the day and the planets who move back and forth. قال فأما القسم بالخنس الجوار الكنس هو المهدي من هذه العترة. He is the Mahdi from this عترة. تكون له حيرة وغيبة. He will have a long disappearance, an oscillation, and a wander. يضل فيها أقوام ويهتدي فيها أقوام آخرون. He says this long disappearance and this wonder will cause certain people to lose their way and certain people to find their way. فيا طوبى لك إن أدركته ويا طوبى لمن أدركه. Maulana, and I will end with this final verse. But before that, let's have a proper salawat. لا بأس بالثانية. قال عليه السلام للقائم منا غيبة. The قائم from us will have a غيبة. أمدها طويل. It will last a very long time. كأني بالشيعة يجولون جولان النعم. أي والله. I see that the Shia wander the way that a lost cattle wanders in the land. يطلبون المرعى فلا يجدونه. They look, they try to find their sustenance. They try to find their imam, but they cannot find him. ألا فمن ثبت منهم على دينه. Whoever from our Shia who holds strong to his faith. ولم يقس قلبه لطول غيبة إمامه. And their heart is not hardened by the length of the غيبة of his imam. فهو معي في درجتي يوم القيامة. هنيئا لكم. He is with me at my level in the hereafter. ثم قال إن القائم منا إذا قام لم يكن لأحد في عنقه بيعة فلذلك تخفي وتخفى ولادته ويغيب شخصه. Our قائم has no oath to anybody imposed upon him. That is why his birth is hidden and his ghaiba is long. Maulana, when we come today and we think, yes, certain individuals mock you, huh? How could it be, that someone is gone for that long? Jesus, How could it be that Jesus will come back? How could it be? How could it be? We say, Maulana, how does the Imam know about this information then? And why is he telling us to, and why is he talking to me today, 1400 years later? And why is he telling me to stay strong? Why wouldn't he say there's no benefit for him to bring this information? But when we stand and we see that everything that we have comes down to this, it comes down to Lima la arak. I go back to this poem. I love that poem. Why do I not see you? Hey, that's why we see in our dua and dua al-nudba, what do we say? هل من معين فأطيل معه العويل. Maulana, I don't want the whole world. I want one individual in the dua we're saying. Is there anybody who cries over him that he might sit with me and we can cry together? I don't need 1 million friends. I don't need 1.9 billion Muslims. What do I need? I need one believer who would sit with me. هل من معين فأطيل معه العويل والبكاء هل من جزوع فأساعد جزعه إذا خلا هل قضيت عين فساعدتها عيني على القضاء هل إليك يا ابن أحمد من سبيل. Is there a way where we can find our way to you? And we find Maulana in our dua, in Dua al-Ahd, which we are supposed to read every morning after Salatul Subh, right? At the tail end of it, what do we say? اللهم إن حال بيني وبينه الموت الذي جعلته على عبادك حتما مقضيا. Oh Allah, if the certainty of death comes between me and my Imam, is that it? La. You are asking Allah to fulfill this for you. فأخرجني من قبري مؤتزرا كفني شاهرا سيفي. Raise me from my grave when he arrives, using my cloth, my kafan as my armor. Shahiran Sayfi, with my sword in hand and my spear in hand. Answering the call, mulabbiyan da'wat ad-da'i. Sallallahu alayhi sayyidi, ya Aba Salih, ya sahib al-asr adrikna, falaysa lana wardun haniyun wala aishun lana ragadu. اي والله طالت علينا ليالي الانتظار فهل يا ابن الزكي لليل الانتظار غدو. حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل. حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل. العراقيين, the Iraqis, have a specific type of poem. And it's special to the Iraqis. There's a lot of them. There's Abu Dhiya, Udarmi, and the Iraqis know them. يقول له تانيناك يا يوم تجينا وتجلي هم الناس. تانيناك وينك يا أبو صالح ضاقت الأنفاس. تانيناك وحق الصعدة الناقة بلا عباس. Says we wait for you. Isn't it enough? Our hearts are constricted. إيه الأكثار متى ننظر العج خيلك والف ما يوقف بصدرك والأكثار إلك دم انهدر بالطف والأكثار سباء أحراركم لابن الدعية. You see our poets, they always speak to the Imam. They remind him of Zainab alayhi salam. Huh? He says to them, we're waiting for you to take back your vengeance. We know your father, Ibn Rasulullah. Your grandfather Rose was 70. You have thousands ready for you, not 70,000s. That's why they remind him, they say, وَجَفْنِي شْلَوَنِ الدَّهَرْ حَارَبْنِي وَجَفْنِي. Speak on behalf of Zainab. وَجْرَ الدَّمَعْ مِنْ عَيْنِي وَجَفْنِي يا ابن الحسن تاليه بوسط مجلس ابن زياد. وجفني وحاكي اللعين من غصب علي. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. إلهي بالحسين الوجيه وجده وأبيه وأمه وأخيه والتسعة المعصومين من بنيه، اللهم عجل فرج القائم من آل محمد. اللهم من أرادنا بسوء فأرده، من كادنا فكده. اللهم ترحم على أمواتنا، اللهم تغمد شهداءنا برحمتك، لا سيما قادتنا. اللهم ابدلنا بهم خيرا يا الله. اللهم عجل فرجه وسهل مخرجه وأوسع منهجه واسلك بي محجته. اللهم شافي كل مريض لا سيما المعينين، فك كل أسير لا سيما المنظورين. إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات من مات على الهدى والإيمان، شيعة أمير المؤمنين، بلغ اللهم الجميع ثواب الفاتحة معطرة بذكر محمد وآل محمد.